Happy Tuesday, third grade. Now today, I want you to go back and reread what we read yesterday. So start on page 198. Go ahead and reread these first 4 pages. Then I'm going to pick it up on page 202 before we get into our reading strategies. All right, so go ahead, press play. Press pause, and when you're done, press play. At first, Jane was nervous and uncertain about learning to read, but she met Abe every day like clockwork. Fortunately, Jane's intense dislike for reading was only a temporary feeling. She was getting the hang of it. As a result, her nervousness began to disappear. One afternoon, Abe surprised her. To her amazement, he gave her his favorite book. "Thank you," she said. "Now that I can read, I don't ever want to stop." Years later, Jane opened her newspaper and read the good news. Her friend Abe Lincoln had been elected President of the United States. She smiled and thought about the day she tripped over his long legs. That was the day that changed her life. Lincoln elected. Abe Lincoln elected 16th President, November 6, 1860. Illinois Senator Abraham Lincoln was elected 16th President of the United States of America. He defeated 3 other candidates in the November 1860 election. Now, today we're going to focus on some of those reading strategies. First one we got to talk about is visualize. On your book, it's on page 204. Use colorful words and details to help you visualize how characters feel. Picture in your mind what they would do as you read. So how does Jane feel at the beginning of the story? Well, Jane slammed the door of the log cabin and raced towards the wood. She's frustrated, right? She's angry. Rereading can help me visualize what's going on, and when I visualize it, I can start to understand the characters more. This week we're also going to talk about cause and effect. Events in a story's plot are made up of causes and effects. A cause is why something happens. An effect is what happens. Words and phrases such as because, so, and as a result often show you that. So if we turn back, here we go. There's what I was looking for. As a result. She was getting the hang of it. As a result, her nervousness began to disappear, right? The cause was she started to, she started to get the hang of reading, and as a result, she wasn't nervous anymore, okay? So, for this story, we can talk about the characters were Jane and Abe. The setting, where the story took place, was the wood near James' house, and the cause was Jane was upset because Mother and Father wanted to learn to read, and the effect, she refuses and she ran through the woods to calm down. Now, another cause and effect here would be something like Jane tripped over Abe's legs. As a result, her and Abe started to talk. Okay? Go ahead and turn the page. Our genre this week is historical fiction. So historical fiction has made-up characters who take part in real events from history. It has illustrations that show the story takes place in the past. Okay, so like Jane was made up, but she meets and talks with Abraham Lincoln, who really was a president of the United States. The illustrations can show details, right? They're dressing much different than how we dress today. And then our vocab strategy is idioms. An idiom is a group of words that mean something different from the meaning of each word in it. For example, piece of cake. It doesn't actually mean a little bit of cake. It means something that's easy to do. So, collect her thoughts is an idiom. Running helps her collect her thoughts. She's not actually going and picking up and collecting her thoughts, right? It just means that she's thinking about something. Let's go ahead and slide our book out of the way. Then we're going to go on to our worksheet. Our worksheet for today, make sure you got your name on the top. Today is December 1st. We can see here, Ray walked by the drugstore and looked in at the lunch counter. He wished he could go in, sit at the counter, and order a milkshake. He couldn't, though, because of the color of his skin. It was the 1960s in Georgia, and there were a lot of places he couldn't go because he was black. When he was younger, this seemed normal to Roy. Then, he started hearing about Martin Luther King Jr. Martin told people that everyone should be equal. He was trying to end segregation, which was separation of people based on their skin color. Now, when Martin held rallies and gave his amazing speeches, Roy was all ears. He listened closely to everything Martin had to say. Roy smiled as he walked away from the drugstore. He couldn't go in there yet, but he was sure that thanks to Martin Luther King Jr., someday he'd be able to. So what features in this text tell you that it's historical fiction? Well, you could say that Martin Luther King was a real person. You can abbreviate his name, MLK. Was a real person, and segregation used to be the law. Visualize Roy looking into the drugstore and wishing he could go in. How is he feeling? Well, what do you think? Roy was probably upset, frustrated, probably sad, right? Because he knew it wasn't right. Why would Roy couldn't go in the drugstore? Why couldn't he go in? Reread if you don't know. Well, up at the top, he couldn't go in because of the color of his skin. Why did Roy smile when he walked away from the drugstore? He smiled because he was sure that Martin Luther King was going to help change that. Right, you can write that here. 5, use the context clues. What does the idiom Roy was all ears mean? Roy was all ears. Does that mean he had huge ears? Well, it said when Martin held rallies and gave his speeches, Roy was all ears. Does that know what that means? Roy listens carefully to Martin Luther King. What made Roy change his thoughts about segregation being normal? He listened to MLK say that it wasn't normal. Listen to MLK say segregation was unfair and needed to be changed. When you guys are done with that, feel free to put that in your Tuesday folder. And then we can go ahead and you can go ahead and move on to the rest of your homework.